Manhood, brought to you in part by Reboot Sports Drink.
Welcome to another conversation of manhood. Today's topic, the importance of the education system and also youth and their outlook. And I know I always say a really big one, but all of these topics are big ones because they have a big impact into the progress of our society in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course to those who are listening and hearing outside of Trinidad and Tobago, the outlook globally. So to my right, Johanse Ayodike, behavior change consultant. To his right, Ian Haywood. Really a pleasure to have you, communication advisor to the Minister of Education and also the former chairman of the National Youth Council, the founding member, the founding chair of the National Youth Council. And to his right, Niall McNish, provocateur, and you'll see why. I better know him as Vibes God. So really a pleasure. Gents, let's get straight into it. Another big one, probably the foundation behind a lot of what we experience in Trinidad and Tobago, positive and negative. Right. And that's the importance of not just education, but the system by which we get educated. And people have various thoughts on, our education system, how we're educated in general, why you should get educated. There's talk now of even the system, should you be educated through that system now because, of AI, and in 10 years, is this system going to even make sense? People not understanding long division. There's all of these conversations. So let's jump into it as to what we first understand by the importance of the education system, and then we can go more into, some conversations you and I had, Ian, that really blew my mind to the understanding of how that impacts both in the upper class, and I hate to use these words, but it's just for defining purposes, and the middle to lower class societies, and understand why, as a result, certain behaviors then permeate, come out, we see it, whether we like it, love it, or indifferent, and also youth and their outlook.
It's interesting. For me, what I like to deal with it logically, and at the end of the day, our children and the young people spend most of their times in schools. Fact. And most of their times up in the education system. So the reality is most of the culture and most of the norm forming takes place in those environments. And if we understand it from that perspective, then it shows how important it is to ensure that that environment is not just about books, but it's about a total cultural training that we need to give to our society. Generally, especially middle class and upper middle class and those kind of spaces, parents reach home very late. You might get 2-3 hours max, a half an hour rushing in the morning, and probably 2 hours before they go to bed in the night. In terms of contact hours, nowhere near the amount of contact as teachers, definitely not the amount of contact as your peers. So the reality is our students, our children spend most of their times away from home, away from the parents' trainings and their brain, and really form their cultural habits and norms in the schools, in the education spaces. And once we get that understanding from the jump, then we understand that for the society to change, for the worldview of our young people to be in a particular alignment, the education system has to facilitate that.
So do you think that we understand the importance of the teacher's role?
No.
Because
No, I don't think so at all. Because Ian, what you're saying, I don't want to sound a bit condescending. I'm not sounding condescending, right? But what you're saying to me is obvious. Right? Because wherever you spend most of your time will shape you. But it seems like many people, including some parents I've encountered, would think that they actually shape their child more than the teachers, which to me doesn't make sense. My mom was a teacher, so she had both sides of the spectrum. But even thinking about it, if you ask anyone, where you learn most of your stuff
definitely
is in school.
Definitely.
What shaped you is school, and whether it is primary school, into secondary school, and even university to an extent. So that importance of the education system, that's why in some countries teachers make more than doctors.
Definitely. That is something I think they're having a conversation around right now with teachers and that kind of stuff.
But you're saying teachers, right? But I actually think it's less teachers that forming the kids and really their peers.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No one
I
going
was
to
just
the school and
yeah.
saying, "Oh, I want to be just like
Yeah.
Mr. Marcel."
No,
Agreed.
I
No, but
disagree with
the-
that.
the
I disagree
teachers-
with that.
And here why, because I'm glad, and I was thinking along the same line. So, for example, my 7-year-old, when he comes home and he's behaving a particular way, and I ask myself, but where did he learn that from? He don't learn it from me. And then or in the environment or the family. And then we go into the school, right? And I met some of his teachers who might be very stush, very stoic in certain ways, and very old school, right? So I know it's not coming from them either, right? So therefore, his behaviors and what he's saying, and when he comes home and he wants to beatbox or he wants to say a couple things that are on YouTube and things like that, right? That he's learning from his societal influences, his peers, his friends, and who he wants to be as part of his pack.
Yeah.
So the teachers are there, yes, to teach you and shape you, and they're the ones that are seeing the child the most throughout the day.
Right.
But are they really shaping the child?
Well, I think the teachers also have a critical responsibility. That's like mommy and daddy at home.
Right.
And we would all go to school and have a particular teacher that would have said, hey, you can do great, you can be amazing, and that sticks with you. You may be
Agreed.
talkative, and somebody else may tell you go and do drama, go and do the play.
Yes.
A different teacher approach you differently because they're seeing you way more than even some of your parents. So they can say, oh, he's funny, and then they put you to host a competition in school, and then that grooms you straight up.
Correct.
So it's like different facets. I think the peers kind of builds your character, but your teachers help shape your direction. And on
So
the
they could-
reverse, if they tell you you're a failure, you talk too much, go to the back of the class, that could put you in a box that is very difficult to come out of.
So they can break your ability. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Teachers, I mean, I threw that out to play devil's advocate. I mean, teachers do play a really strong fundamental role because again, my son comes back or my niece, and they will tell you they were so happy they got a gold star, and the teacher, the comments the teacher writes really goes a long way to boost their confidence and what they want to do. But likewise, if they get scolded, even coaches, we take it from teachers to coaches to
Correct.
other it could be other teachers, not just in the academic forum, but it could be music and so on. Really can determine how a child feels more so than the parent in many cases.
Correct, because you use an important word there. You said grooming, right?
Yeah.
Now, in this day and age, when we hear the word grooming, we usually now have a negative connotation with it. But the point is, as leaders, as teachers, or as educators, I want to use the word educators instead because it's not only academics.
broader,
Agreed.
Because
Yes.
I remember it has some cleaners in my primary school and
definitely.
thing, give me some good education, so it's not only teachers.
That's true.
Right? So as educators, all educators have the responsibility of grooming children. Right? And grooming, again, I saying it because grooming seems to have a negative connotation, but the point is they are there to groom.
Right.
So children are a ball of energy.
Correct.
Let me use hair. You just groom your hair.
Yeah.
Your hair just in itself is your hair, but with the right grooming, you can put it in the right direction with the right look.
Right.
So children are this ball of energy. So I think with their peers, they get the energy from the peers.
Yeah.
So you get a whole set of different
Yeah.
things, and then it's the educator's responsibility to now groom the children in a manner that is fit for society.
Yeah.
So we could come back to, all that is putting into context the importance of the education system and the second part of it, which is youth and their outlook.
Yeah.
Because the outlook is based on that grooming that we're speaking of. And what they perceive is their right and wrong, their compass, their morality compass going forward. I have some questions before we really dig deep into the real reason behind bringing that into manhood, not just to understand why people may become the people that they become, good and bad, negative and positive, depends on your outlook or which side of the fence you sit on, and survivability. But also, the question always comes up, the present education system, which you can give us really some strong insight into, and is it conducive not just from the point of view with AI and all these other technologies coming up, where some things are no longer required, and we say it's to keep the brain and to be able to the word I'm looking for, you answer. I'm not going to be short to adapt, but also to take you to the next levels, right? And yes, that's why these things are put in place. But more so, the question also comes up. Boys, for example, is it natural to have a boy, young boys, sat down in a classroom for eight hours a day, having to sit still to take on? Is it natural to their behavior? Because when you stop them, when you give them their preferred environment, they're running around, they're busybodied, and also whereas women, I'm not saying that all women
have data to prove this. You don't have to give no.
So you know where I'm going with that. So
no caveats. It have data to prove that men and women, boys and girls learn differently. I mean, again, I would say it obvious, you know. I want to be actually a bit condescending. It is obvious. So if it's so obvious, it's obvious before I was born, right? So why it is education system still so obtuse, still so linear? It doesn't make sense to me, and that's why even parents and educators. That's why I like now, as even some people oppose it. There are a lot of private schools opening in Trinidad now, right? A lot of people are going the homeschooling route, right? And I okay with it because people thinking. Now, I'm not saying homeschooling better than anything else or private school better than anything else, but at least they're making the effort to try to adapt, to try to understand that the world changing. So I want to put children in the position to be able to not only survive but thrive in society.
What I like is the adaptability concept, right? Because like the Ministry of Education now, I think 2023 last year, they would have launched this new education policy, 2023 to 2027, to speak to cultural transformation through curriculum reform. So basically it is including sport, food and nutrition, farming, and all those things now to be put into the curriculum and not just maths, English, social studies. So that was actually like a 2-year conversation between all the stakeholders, and last year that was passed. So and that is where Adopter School kind of came out from, and projects like that. How do we make it more than just sit down in the classroom and just read a book? How do you inculcate the children into doing farming and actually having pigs and cows and rabbits in schools?
You threw in the Adopter School. Just let me...
it's nobody ask. Right. Nobody ask. What is the Adopter School?
Well, it's the best thing that ever happened in Trinidad since sliced bread, right? But Adopter School is really an initiative calling corporate Trinidad to come and take care of a school, to adopt a school, to champion the cause of helping our students and our young people advance, but in the curriculum reform areas. So in things like how do we do digital transformation? How do we teach children to create and make apps and all those different things? How do we do agriculture, aquaponics and aquaculture? How do we do farming and sewing? And how at more actively in school and not just for the month or two after they finish SEA.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was about to ask,
so
what's to stop from a corporate company just throwing money and saying, all right, here's 500,000, y'all just handle that, do whatever you think is best school. How are you going to prevent or guardian that from actually happening?
So the Adopter School program is based in the ministry. So when corporate come on board, they come up with a proposal that has to be vetted and approved to ensure it's still within a certain framework, within the curriculum setup and that kind of stuff. So that's the back end side. But the reality is now the conversation of going to school has to be different.
Yes.
Has to be an absolute different experience
and
from when we went to school.
Me as a corporate entity, why I want to adopt a school? Why I want to do that?
Well, the saying is, education is good business. But the real base tax is everybody that is in school now is going to work for us in 10 years.
That is
everybody who's in school now is going to pay our pension or cancel our pension in 20, 30 years. But that's the reality.
But also, what is in it for them is you're paying the tax anyway.
Yeah.
So you're paying the tax anyway. You give 100,000, you get back 150,000. And you get to say, hey, I build that school.
Yeah.
And you did a good turn.
They get back more than they put in tax. So if they give, like using the same analogy, using 100,000, so they get back more in tax.
150%.
Oh, okay. That's an important factor.
Up to 500,000. And that is where the government is saying, guys, do it. We support, and we will going to support you in doing it. We're supporting you in standing up. We're supporting you by giving you, if not greater rebate than what you did. Okay. But that has to tie into the new policy that was passed, because that would be a lot to change the culture. Because you have to have the teacher's mindset changing, and the whole system has to change.
Okay. So we need to go to a break. But before we go to the break, just quickly, how does that mean that we'll see improvements in, again, not just the way of thinking, because you need to have some sort of, and the word I was looking for earlier, guys, in terms of why long division one was development. It's how you develop your way into different stages.
That's the word you was getting in trouble
That's
for.
what I was getting in trouble with. But note, I asked my panel, and they still couldn't.
Go ahead.
All right, so let's
That's the importance of the education system.
move it along swiftly, because we also spoke about grooming. But I mean, you can see my body here today. But let's not, shake it out. Yeah. But so we really come down to the fact that you need to have there must be some part of the school system that they have to show discipline. So they have to have some classroom activity. Definitely. But we also need to break it up. In the same way you take breaks regularly to have things like you said, the farming, the agriculture, to where you want to go. So the good thing I'm hearing as well is that maybe the PE teacher who normally, when you grow up, tries to teach everything, that we now see someone specific for athletics, specialized for football, specialized for cricket. That's really great stuff, and that's a good note to go to the break.
All right, this is Manhood, and we are back, and we want to just transition a little bit from the education and how the education system was built and is currently being built, but really what happens when you slip through the education system and then you end up in the communities and life after that. And that's one of the things that affects me a lot when I was chairman of the National Youth Council, because in that space you're going to different communities and you're talking to people, especially when you come in, why you're behaving like that, why you're doing like that, and you're behaving a kind of way as if they're wrong, and you learn so much about not just right and wrong, but the cultures in which we operate in. I remember a young man was telling me once that to be honest with you, I was found in a garbage bin in the big dumpster.
How old was this youth, man?
He was about 19, but of course about 4 days old. Somebody heard him crying in a garbage bin. And those are the garbage dumpsters that the truck does come up. Everybody come down the hill and throw the garbage in and pick up that and throw that in the back and drive off. And somebody in the community found them and took him out. And of course, you don't know who mom and dad is, because they may not have been from that community. You may have now had a baby, drive down the road, look around and
do that,
sure.
right?
So you weren't left to be found, eh?
No.
You were left to be discarded. Let that sink in.
And so when you say that, and then you say, well, these guys kind of took me out and started to have me around and groom me. And now, those are the same guys who are encouraging you to do, and they wouldn't even say encouraging, is they feeding me. I have no reason to be here. So the mentality coming out of that and the loyalty.
Yeah, because
the loyalty
they gave me my life.
Yes. It's
Ian,
crazy.
What I want you to elaborate on for not just our viewers and listeners, but also for Niall and Johan say, is this gentleman also now has no birth papers. He has no idea when his birthday was.
Wow, I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah,
understand
nothing. Yeah, nothing. You can't get a job. You can't go into the system. You have no license.
So he was given a name then?
A nickname. You don't have a surname. So unless you have an adopted kind of, and that is, it's not as foreign as we think. It's actually, a lot of people go through different things.
I love that you say that, because the truth is, even though we or most people may not be from that, let's say, extreme of a background, but all of us are from different backgrounds. So therefore, when we enter in the education system or not, we all come from different backgrounds. But if we have a one-size-fits-all education system, then therefore it wouldn't fit all. So I'm glad you highlight that, because when a child go into the system with a different mindset than the system could even cater for, right? Then if the system, I would say fail for now, if the system fail that child or isn't designed for that child, then the result will be something that society didn't even cater for either. And then would be deemed deviant, would be deemed a bad element. But the truth is, things wasn't even in place which society is supposed to do, right? That's a responsibility of the society to put things in place for the citizens of the society. But if it wasn't put in place, then the outlook of the youth would be way different. And then we would think something wrong with them.
And the other part to that, again, Ian, has a couple of these stories that will simply blow your mind, because again, it's from where you sat. Where you are sat is all you can see.
Yeah.
You know, a lion could only be a lion.
Yeah.
So if you're in this environment, you can't fathom, you know, as we had that discussion, you know, with Christmas list, you know, where we started to understand that people simply didn't want to die. You know, you're born in these communities, so you have to go and execute the task put forward because you simply want to eat. You want to survive. So people who are not in that environment can't understand. So one of these stories, Ian, you were sharing with me was, you know, about that some of these guys want to go to jail.
Yeah, I was not going to say that, and I said want to eat. That kind of came back to me. Like who wants to go to jail? And when people tell you, well, it is so hard out here. You have nothing to eat. You have nothing to drink. You have no place to sleep comfortable. Sometimes you sleep with guys who sleep in abandoned homes. And 2 o'clock in the morning, boom, 2 people come and abuse you. Hold your dog is real, and you just looking for a place just to hide for the night. And people come and rob you. I know people personally who were sleeping in certain areas, and 2 o'clock in the morning, everything they have, they take the shoes, take the bag, interfere with them, just like that. And you're already in a destitute place already. So it's really maxed out mentally to the point where people are saying, you know what, I prefer to go in jail. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Well, jail, you have breakfast, you have lunch, you have dinner, you have a bed, you can get a degree, you can go to the gym, you can play basketball.
Wow, so it's more beneficial to me
than lying down in the bush in a thing. And
because you might be there, and you might have other friends who might be there as well, who are
Crews,
like-minded crew.
networks.
So therefore, the chance of you being abused in that sense are lower. And if you hear what he's saying in terms of they're trying to hide or they just want to survive the night, but again, you sit in one environment and you can't fathom that type of life. What some people can't fathom what it's like to be hungry, not not see anything in a fridge. Some people don't even have a fridge.
Right.
You know, you don't have family. You like this gentleman who 19 years old who doesn't even have a birth paper, has no family.
Yeah,
so there's no one to
crazy.
turn to.
And the scary thing is, if you are at that point okay with going to jail, then that is a punishment for crime, is a reward.
Yeah.
So how do I not do crime if the result is going to jail? But I'm okay with.
So I want to bring Johannes in here because you go from a
very
period of, say start off at a level of 100%, right? And you have, with mental health, you have, different degrees and different percentages of that to the point where you're now at 0. You're broken. But then at broken, as you're saying, you are already destitute, you're already broken, and then you go into these environments and you get interfered with. So you then cross over into feral.
Okay, I understand why you use that word.
It's tough. So when I hear those stories, it rocks you because you don't know anything about that personally. Like what you're talking about.
So broken.
Yeah.
What exists in you now is just the almost the Neanderthal type need just to survive.
Yeah,
you're just
crazy.
eating, drinking, and doing what is necessary to continue to do that, and also probably to give you some moments of pleasure.
Yeah.
In that sense.
So let me just ask another question just before you answer that, right? So is it that the education system currently, as it stands, right, before we do all these niceties, is it that it's failing fundamentally because they still have a group of individuals who are not benefiting from the system that it is that exists currently, and are we just raising are we raising sociopaths because of that?
I don't think it's an educational system thing. I think it's a societal thing. So even from like a government perspective, there are other ministries and agencies that deal with the socio culture of our communities. So there are other ministries that are dealing with not just the school children, but the whole community, the whole home.
Gotcha.
Those ministries that giving you grants for unemployment and all those different things. So there are other spaces that have that direct responsibility.
Because now you have to get to get to the school first.
Yeah. So
you have to be able to afford it.
Yeah,
you
to
have
come
to
to school.
You
So
have to be able to-
who gives you, who make sure you have milk, a place to sleep? That's not really the education system.
Right.
That the education system is for those who make it in,
Who
and you
actually
have to know groom that person to be a better citizen.
And you're
Along
coming
with
with those-
along with the other other agencies and the other projects and stuff like that. But from birth to 5, from birth to 12, something has to take place. And then there are people who drop out of school because their parents have nothing and they have to go and farm or you have to go and stand up on the highway. The reason why I dropped out wasn't because the education system failure, was because it's society.
You had
And
to
the
use
societal
force.
norms. So when we're talking about it, we really need to look broader, and it can't be just on our government. It has to be on us. And that's why, I got into NGO work as well, because everybody who have the ability to do something should do something, should contribute somehow. At least that's what I think. I think we should. You can't see what bubbling on your chest, you can't see.
Listen, hear this, right? Niall, that was a real good question you asked to raise the point of the society, because I am one who always advocate for self-empowerment.
Right.
That we shouldn't depend on others to do things. But listening after we did the steeping with Christmas list, and we heard that, and we talked to KG, and we hear a different side of society, I think this is real Let me tell you what, and I'm not a political scientist.
Right.
I think the role of our government should be at least to provide the 3 basic levels of Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is shelter, right, food, and security. Whether it is physical, I'll veer a little bit with the psychological, because if we giving taxes to a group of people, right? I tried here to say Trinidad, how we manage Trinidad like a parlor. This is evidence of that,
Wow.
Right? You can't even manage your resources you get properly for the basic. I ain't saying extra thing and car, I ain't even which car and thing, I ain't saying everybody's supposed to have a car. We're talking about the basic things. There's a base level that people don't even have, that they're willing to go to prisons. And I don't know if you've ever been any of the prisons in Trinidad and Tobago. Even one of the newest ones, the maximum security and thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in there, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to just say that again, and maybe to us, because for those of you who are hearing Ian and Johansen now and saying about, and the persons that go to jail or want to go to jail because it's better is subject to the environment.
Right. Yeah.
If you think by any means that is an experience, have a visit. When you hear that the iron go clank,
Clank.
there's a whole, whether you on the outside or unfortunately the inside, the experience will certainly shake you to your core.
You know what scares me, Yohansi? On that same point you just read about normal, when I went to other Caribbean islands and I went even to the United Kingdom and realized that even here, what we give is way more than first world countries and other Caribbean islands. So I remember for a while I hear I'm knocking it. It's not enough. And when you go, simple things like the light on the road in England is dark, because we're not paying that electricity bill. Walk in the hospital in America and because they got damaged, what? If you don't bring insurance, you get nothing. You die. Regardless of if you have to, it's not wait long and don't have a bed and still get service after 3 days, you get nothing. Unless you have insurance.
It depends where you go, because they have to stabilize you.
Yeah.
And after they stabilize you is when they know to see the insurance. But
But I think on the emergency ones.
Yeah.
But
If
there
they
are
turn you
plenty
away.
non-emergency incidents that happen
Yeah.
every day in our spaces that you wait and there's pockets of spaces. So when you start to see that and travel all over the place and see that, you realize that it's absolutely not good enough.
Well, the
We
grass-
agree on that, but it's like from the world perspective, like how do we manage that?
We understand that education is not only academics, and the importance of giving people what they need. So, I'll digress and come back. In couples counseling, what I tell couples is give the person what they need, not what you think they need. So you can give somebody, if somebody want A, B, and C, that's 3 things.
Right.
Give them that. No, you might give them C to Z, which is 23 things, but they won't appreciate it and it won't be good for them because what they wanted is A, B, and C.
Right.
So if we're looking at a society, right? And you may not know every single person in society, but I'm sure we have a general idea what are some of the pillars to create a successful society, a successful populace, and the people that we have in charge. And again, I do advocate against, we had to get it from the government and et cetera, but listening to it, that ministries, people in charge, because once you're a leader, you have a responsibility, whether you like it or not. Yeah, whether you're a leader in a community, leader in an organization, leader of the country, you have a responsibility. And understanding that and putting those things in place really important, so that when it funnel into the education system now, or they could even reach to be funneled in the education system, is really important.
So there's just to touch on what you said, there's an author by the name of Khalil Gibran who speaks about that, especially in relationships, where it's like, you're giving or love languages, where the person's asking for water, but you're saying, hey, but look, all this expensive wine. But they're like, but all I'm asking for is a glass of water. Right. But look, you could have this nice liquor, but asking for water. So as the great Haywood George said, the people want water. Right. And what they're asking for is probably, at the basics. My boy here likes to quote Maslow a lot on the propensity of needs. Yeah. And what they want is what at the basic level we need to give. And I take your point when you mentioned about grass always looks green on the other side. Right. And there are things, whether it be fuel prices and even medication, and the drugs that we get here in Trinidad are highly, highly subsidized. Yeah. There are drugs here that are over 2,000 US, right? That you get through.
But we can't get water to everybody.
Yeah, but no, so it's not even just that. My thing is, what if you have a bottle of water, but you have to feed 10 people in the class, and everybody need a bottle of water? So it's like, for me, it's like, we know what the need is. But if I only have one bottle of water, it is impossible to shake that and make that into 10. So
what is past is prologue. You can't go back and say this government and that government.
Right. So exactly, it's not about this and that government, but we understand. We understand what it is. And so whether now, so now I'm going back with, it is still our responsibility. If the people who supposed to do it, not doing it, then we have to do it.
That is the
Agreed.
thing. That is what I'm saying. Because if I have one bottle of water and 10 people need to get water,
we need to get 9.
have to find a way to get 9 other bottles of water in the room.
But here the thief with that, right? And this way Robin Hood is coming. Right? Because if the people...
That's not what your country can do for you.
The people that have not doing it, then a Robin Hood, and I'm using Robin Hood now metaphorically, would have to do it. Right. And that's why even, you want to say somebody crime coming, because you work with people in prisons. Some of the people who commit crime, they committed based on need. Yeah. There's not I'm a criminal and I conspiring against somebody and I just want to hurt somebody. I didn't have the basic things. These people here have the basic things. So then, I will take the L from a family, I'll take the L from a community, or so forth and so on, and I'll go after it.
And that's why the rest of us have to understand that. When you be selfish with your pocket, you actually, from a society perspective, risking your community even more.
So what we're understanding here is it's not always what they need, what they just need. It's also all they know. As we've established, people who want to go to jail. It's not they need to. It's what they know is that is a better life. Yeah. And we're coming back to the point of the importance of the education system and youth and their outlook. And where we sit is what you see. And therefore, if you're at one point, you can't understand that life, and they probably can't understand your life or the lives of an upper class, middle class, and to the lower class. So, with that one, we take a break and we come back more on the importance of the education system and how does it affect how we become men.
Hey, welcome back. This is Manhood. Topic is very spicy. We're talking about the educational system and for me, if it's working or not. However, I want to actually address the elephant in the room, which is right now to me as an outsider looking in, right? I've been seeing, especially of late in the news, a lot of fights, which I find very strange because when I was in school, I didn't have, yes, we used to fight a lot of time, especially for boys, but now when you're seeing girls going to that level or that extreme level of violence, I'm like, clearly something is changing. I might think it's the internet that actually creating these situations, but is there something more fundamental that I'm missing?
For me, all during school, I used to see plenty fight. I think the broadcasting of anything is now amplified. That's what I personally think, to be honest. But of course, society is really different from long time. And the levels I think that we're doing now and feel more comfortable doing as a society is way more risky than the risk we would take back in the day for sure.
So I take your point on that, but you mentioned there that it was happening even in your day, right? So therefore, even then, there were issues. And I know we spoke about society's role before they even get to school. But even when they get to school, like the school I went to, you know, any sort of bad performance or something is either suspension, is licks, is lines, and I know a lot of the corporal punishment we've taken away from the school system, but the fact that you said it happened even in your day, then it doesn't mean that the flaws happened now, the flaws were there before. So what is it that the school system can do? What is it the education system can do to sort of course correct or, ease maybe some of the behaviors or the understanding of the children to not be part of that? Or is it just hold your hands up, boy, well, the society they come from and therefore this is a product of that?
Yeah, no, I think
they're wasting time in school.
Me, I think it definitely have to do more, but is so big. It's so, for me, it's so large of an issue. I don't even know. Even like the teachers need more support. The teachers need more invested in. But school fights, we do not for losing a football game.
So a possible solution, and which I've seen worked, is to ask why. Now you may think that's simple, but sometimes we think we know why somebody fighting, but we may not know why. So therefore we can't apply the appropriate solution because we think we know and we apply this blanketing. Now let me tell you where I learned that. When I used to work with NGOs, I remember applying for funding. After a while, the companies we would apply for, what they would want is a sustainability aspect of the program. So they want to see how the program is sustained. So therefore now, to ensure that it is sustained is not just a one-time thing. We actually have to go into the schools and find out, okay, principals, teachers, what are the issues that you have? All right, we have these 10 issues. Obviously, we can't deal with all 10. We take in one issue. And we take this one issue and then we deep dive into it. We have the 10 students. Okay, we take in 10. Now, we have plenty of students, but we could only take 10. And we take 10 and then we find out. So we ask the parents, we find out where they live, etc., etc. And we do a deeper dive. Is root cause analysis. That's a form of therapy also, right? Where you dig deep, you ask the why and the why and the why. And then you
find
dig.
the source.
Dig. So because expulsion, suspension, licks, most of those things are used because of the symptoms. So we use it to address the symptoms, not the cause. And I like that. And I jumping back to where we all have to do something because we have a lot of NGOs in Trinidad. And some people say it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. But I think it's a good thing because each NGO could even take up a different aspect of things. Right. So if I do in this community with the psychological level, somebody could do the social level, somebody could do this, somebody could do that, and we address all the issues. And then maybe what we could do, and this is for future, then maybe come together with the data. Right.
Oh,
and find what we have because
that is spot on.
It could be solved,
Yeah.
But it's the why, and I've sticking that. Ask why are we fighting, and then we talk about the intensity of the fight. So it had fights when I was in secondary school too. We didn't have camera, phone, and thing to publicize it. But I would agree the intensity of the fight changed because it didn't have no stab up on thing. It might get licks, fists, but the actual stab or even sometimes the intent to kill. I think it was a little different from then to now. And if we're going back with the needs, if your basic needs not met, you come in, even if you actually reach the school environment, you come in with a different degree of desperation.
Right.
And you spoke about when people desperate, they become feral. And when with animals, when an animal back against the wall, an animal will do anything to survive. And we're not describing the students as animals, but all of us are human. And if you push our back against the wall, we could become animalistic.
We're all part of the animal kingdom.
Yeah, we could become animalistic. So, so that's my solution, the why.
But you spoke about data, but though when you know better, you do better. Right? And if in these circumstances, I know, Ian, you mentioned about there was stabbing in your day too, right? Or there were things happening in your day.
Stabbing.
But yes, I take your point that social media and another for the advent of social media has made it a lot more wider known. It's now
Right.
it's now in your face. Everyone is now more aware of it. You spoke about some of these students that commit these crimes in
Right.
schools,
Right.
expelled.
Right.
But then we put them back into our society, and now you're now uneducated
Right.
as a result of that. So you've taken something bad and made it now worse.
So from a data perspective, just to jump in on your right there, the question I would ask is how much school fight there are now compared to 10 years ago, and then 20 years ago,
Okay, yeah.
right? So 'cause that takes away the iPhone and the social media
Right.
recording. And if that data is said we have 100 school fights this year, and 10 years ago it was 102, and before that was 98, then that's facts that it could
But
look
we're
nothing
not-
change.
but guys-
definitely it feels like
Gotcha.
like a whole heap more. So it's
But
not really
guy-
condoning it, you know. But what we feeling, is that real? Is
And-
there
and-
there is an increase
But
in
whether
violence?
whether
Or
there's
is
an
it real?
increase, whether there's an increase or not, because people now
Yeah.
are more aware of it, and some of them do it for popularity and to make a mark and to make a statement, etc. But we're not about when we talk about the importance of the education system, we're not talking about the importance now.
Yeah.
That now the education system is failing us. We talk about whether it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. We
Yeah.
talk about overall. Does it mean that we've never really addressed from the source, as Johanse was talking about just now, and have we really the root cause? Have we looked at it before then, or have we been putting a plaster on it and sort of ignoring it? And
Right.
as such, now with social media, it is now coming to the fore. So the question there is, when we talk about the importance of the education system and youth and their outlook, can we then briefly talk about, should we be then introducing some sort of military training, some sort of military time, whether it be a year or two at the age of 11 or 12 or 13 or 14, whatever.
Mandatory cadets.
Nobody
Mandatory.
actually have those kind of programs, right? Because
Mandatory.
when people are separated from the normal school, you still have to go Milat, and you still have to go. You're not going back home and do nothing. You still have to go in a more military,
But that's at the point of
advised space to do different groomings, different technical vocational skills, and all those different things that probably didn't exist before. Long time when you get expelled, you're home and you have to go and work. But now it have so many YTEP and so many different spaces that you now have to be transferred into, compared to just totally expelled.
But
and
what I'm
kicked
saying,
out.
Ian, before you get to that level,
Yeah.
before you've acted out,
Yeah,
that maybe at that point, prevention is better than cure.
yeah,
So at that point, there's some sort of training that allows not just for us to continue to have a military presence and recruits, etc., but persons who will then, have a sense of discipline.
Right.
I remember seeing, you ever saw, like when you see cadets and you see them marching, there's a sense
Yeah,
of pride.
yeah,
They put on the uniform, they put on the boots, and there's a sense of pride. My dad, who God rest his soul, was in the Royal Air Force, would tell me about hog-nosed boots and spit and shine.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
have to
polish
polish
it,
it, and
yeah.
and when
Pull
you
your
make
tip.
your bed, you have to
Yeah,
be able to flip
yeah,
a coin on
yeah.
it, to
all
how
about,
taut
right?
it was.
I can't tell you when last I see a Boy Scout, a Girl Scout, a cadet. I can't tell you when last I see any of those programs. So I totally understand where you're coming from that. So my question now is the solution just to throw money, like more money? Would more money be able to solve all our issues? If money was not an issue.
Me, I don't think so, but
More
I think
money, more problems.
Yeah, I think.
Nah. I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
one.
but
In this
I think it
context.
creates a space for more opportunity.
Yes.
I think more money could create a space for more opportunity. I think when I get more opportunity, people who may have been sidelined before would now be able to find a space that they could call home and be excellent. So there are so many more people now coming up with so many more specialities who are being able to
Okay.
dream. I want to be an artist, and it is very easy to say I want to be an artist and become an artist in your own right in a couple of months, compared to the dreamers that we had before. It was so difficult to access your dream. So more money facilitates that. You may be in a school before, and how do I do this? I really prefer cooking, I really prefer agriculture, but there wasn't any space for that. And just wider society on a whole, when you come out of school, when you want to do something, you have so many different things. And not even Trinidad, anywhere in the world, you could just go on YouTube yourself and start to sing. You start a podcast if you want to be on TV.
There
No
is.
longer do I need to have to go to media school and get 25 brilliant call-ups to be on national TV. I can sit down home and set up podcasts, and 12-year-olds and 15-year-olds are playing game and have thousands of people streaming them, and parents making money. So it's the world now. Money brings those opportunities. It could be destructive, but it could also be very transformative, I think, as well.
So, again, gents, a very rich conversation. We're running out of time, and that's why we continue these conversations, and certainly we'd want to have you back here. So we could just kind of go around the room, closing thoughts, starting off with you.
For me, I think, and I believe, men have to do more for the society, for the communities, for our homes. I think we have been covered down and we have been minimized for too much, and the social economic space is making us being comfortable with just being invisible. And men, at the end of the day, have to stand up and be the uncles and the stepfathers in the community, have to stand up in the schools, have to, long term, if it are two people fighting, you could bet your bottom dollar, the first driver that's coming pulling over, stopping and holding the two, hey, stop that. Random. Men have to do more. And if men do more in Trinidad and Tobago, the community and the country will start to be a better place. Men have to hold people accountable. Men have to be accountable. And that's why I think this program is phenomenal, because there are men who are sitting down and knowing in your chest, you're not doing enough. You're minding your own business. We have to do more individual, and that's where the self-accountability has to come into place. But I'm being very specific about men. Not just every citizen should be self-accountable. I think we have to do more. We must find 3 or 4 people that we choose that we're going to do more in their life. That's what I really believe.
Ian, let me ask you. We've discussed it a couple times on manhood. In your estimation, your opinion, what does it take to be a man?
Being brave to be authentically you. The hardest thing I observe is men being comfortable to speak the truth. We have to posture so much.
We have to
posture so much to so much of people. And that's not joke. If you bounce your foot, it doesn't hurt. Yeah, if that foot only hurt you, you gotta get out of my house, culturally. So we have to be able to be brave, because we have a real valuable space and contribution to make. But now it's becoming even more burdensome, because if you talk too much, if you stand up too much, it's toxic masculinity now. And you gotta be brave enough to watch all those new social norms. And if you are too decisive, quick, it's narcissistic for when the men do it. And we have to be brave enough to say, nah, you're not putting that label on me. That is wrong.
Manolescence is a new one. Peter Pan syndrome. Man-child.
And anytime men stand up and start to put the chest out and start to be alpha, then we have a problem. They find some technical term to trap us to get softer, to become more quiet and more invisible. And that is not what we're supposed to be anymore. In 2024, 2025, we had to have men who are brave enough to be able to stand the cancelling on social media, to be able to withstand the perception of people and do the right thing because it's the right thing.
That's one of the best examples.
I never say amen on this show yet.
I was about to say it. I only said preach, brother.
Like, wow. Okay. I really appreciate that you say that to them for real. You know? As the provocateur on the show, who's had to take some, take some stings sometimes based on the things that I say. But you're right. But just keep in mind that same man who we want to have hold other people accountable could also be that little boy who grew up into that man, right? So we all know that it have space for errors to be made.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that with time comes wisdom. And no matter how bad you was as a youth man, no matter how bad, if you at least pass the age of 30, 33, 35, somehow you just get a little bit of common sense now. And you just know when other people doing the wrong things. And I think that's the time when you may have to face some of your peers with some difficult things and say some of the difficult things. And I like the fact that on panels like this, we get to actually express ourselves.
It's a circle. So even as a man, even if I am not whole and there are areas I have a gap, a next man has to hold me accountable. My father has to hold me accountable. The grandfather in the community has to hold me accountable. So it's not even I am the top. holding the younger generation accountable. There will always be a man who's wiser, with more experience above me. And if everybody as a culture decide we holding our brothers accountable, everybody will get help. So I help one side, but I get help on the left. And once it becomes circular, and once we become brave enough for our society to stand up and say, no, we're not taking that, we're not encouraging that, we're not condoning that. And they can label it however you want, we're not doing it. And that has to stop. You can look at all the reels, all the memes on social media. They say this little baby giving trouble to lie down, daddy walk in the room and watch you, and your natural inclination
it's a simmer down quick, right?
Natural inclination.
And
the weakness of our society is when you have men stop doing that. Stop just walking in the room. And stop making it obvious that I am present. Not even shouting, talking, nothing, just being present.
Being there, right?
Yeah.
So I will take it from there. To give you a hand, say to close the show, because with the show Diamond or Gold Nugget, we talk about education, and as Johan said mentioned, education comes in all forms, and on this show, the importance of education comes from the man in a man's life, from the time that you're born to the time that you go out there and do your thing. The presence of a male, be it an uncle, a friend, someone that you trust, who has that moral compass of the person that you want your child to become, needs to be present in that child's life. Women, you do everything that you can do, and you're one of the most important, if not the most important, part of a child's life. A son, when they grow up, that nurturing aspect. But a man needs a man to guide him. A lion needs a lion. And so when we talk about that education, that's where it needs to start.
Yeah.
What it takes to be that boy, what it takes to be that man. And part of that is not just the individual, but the community. Yeah. That is the society, to ensure that we get back to the point, as you mentioned, Ian, about stopping in the road and saying, hey, stop that. What you're doing. You need to start getting back involved. Yeah. And I know being afraid of cancel culture is one thing, but also being afraid that something will happen as a result of doing it.
Right.
We need to step up. You mentioned brave as one of your first things with regards to being a man. Yeah. It's the only way things are going to change. And I mentioned more money, more problems. And I take your point, Johan, say when you said, in this case, it's not apt. I retract, because when we look at programs like Adopt a School, and we really put the money into those schooling systems, and we give them better facilities, AC, hot, it's hot out there. Someone who might be interested in cricket or studying, but they might be interested in football, and you have a coach who's a properly paid coach who can take, a coach in a young boy's life is everything. Growing up swimming for me, my coach was my disciplinarian. Those are the types of things. That's how corporate TNT can get involved. When you said it, Ian, if you have one bottle of water and 10 people, right, where the other 9 coming from? Yeah. And that's where we individually, as a society, corporate, as one gentleman once said, it's not, don't ask what you could do for your country, but what can you do for it?
Thank you. Right? I appreciate meeting men of different walks, because what I don't know, you know. Right. As you're saying, we complete that circle and be our brother's keeper. And viewers, you could disagree with me on this, but as men, I believe everything is our fault. Right. If you have success, it's your fault. If you have failure, it's your fault. If you pass the exam, you can't say because you are bad teachers. You have to find a way to still get the education. And education is not only academics.
Yeah. Correct.
And I'm putting it out because most men that I know, we are solution-oriented. Yeah, so complaining, and you can argue with me, complaining is not really a masculine trait, right? You could complain sometimes, but have the solution with
what
it.
Next?
So whatever going on in society is our fault, right? Yeah. And we could change it. And you said that men need to be present.
Yeah.
So whether it is present in the family, present in the community, present in society, and present don't mean making noise. a man who stand up and you know that man is stand for something, he could be silent. Because when a man stand for something, I can't cuss wrong or I know you never late to know, or I know a man when a man stand for something, it means something. And each man, because we have a different gift, we could stand for something different.
Correct.
You don't have to stand for everything.
Correct.
Jesus already come and he do what he had to do. So each man now stand for some sort of quality, something that they could stand for, and that in itself is education. So it could be you stand for academics, you stand for earliness, you stand for punctuality, you stand for excellence, you stand for something. And I believe if everybody, each man is able to manage themselves first, right? Then society itself will become better, and therefore now we can start managing and helping others as we move along. So this is manhood. I know you want to say something, but we
out of time.
Right. Robert, Johan, say, Ian, Niall, thank you very much for viewing, and we'll see you again.
Stand up, brothers.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Reboot Sports Drink.